Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. I'm making this video. It's pretty random. It's not a response to anyone. It's just some comments that I've been on some observations that I've been making recently. One in particular is, how do non-Christians view the Trinity, or how do they explain the Trinity? Because I've been watching a lot of debates from Dr. James White, and some of his, when he discussed Trinitarian Christian topics. And one of his biggest, accusations against Muslims or any non-Christian who comes to the table trying to prove the Trinity wrong, or something to that effect, to disprove the Trinity, is that they don't even understand the basis of what the Trinity is. And, the thing is, I might not agree with Dr. James White on many things, but I do respect him as probably one of the most tolerable Christian apologists here on YouTube. I mean, we all know that there are many Christian apologists like Jay Smith, Venom Fang-X, and, Investigate Islam and things like this, and they're all pretty much haters with a blind, utter hatred, no willingness to actually have a decent conversation with Muslims, or any non-Muslim for that matter, atheist or what have you. Yet James White, to his credit, seems to be one of the few Christian apologists left that actually doesn't mind having a decent conversation with another human being, which seems to be a rare quality in today's online and actually in-person society. But this video, first off, my word disclaimer is, I'm actually not defending the Trinity as a theological concept. I've said in my past videos the Trinity is probably one of the most confusing theological doctrines concocted by mankind. The reason why I say that is because it's my belief the Trinity is not actually illustrated in the Bible, and so therefore you have these humans who are developing a doctrine, and we can see the development of the doctrine as years progressed after Jesus' death. Of course, Christians might disagree with me on that, and that's fine. Once again, this isn't to spark a debate about the Trinity. And I'm not defending the Trinity, like I said, as a doctrine, a theological doctrine, which I don't actually believe in. However, I am going to defend its integrity, and what I mean by this is that there are many non-Muslims who say that Christians are not monotheistic, that they are pagans, and that they worship three gods. Now, while you might think that as a non-Christian, Christians do not believe this. Okay? See, you cannot actually have double standards, and this is something that I'm afraid that many non-Christians are falling into. Because, for an example, you can have many people critique your religion and say, you believe this. For example, with Muslims, I've heard people say that, Muslims worship the Kaaba as God, and that Allah is the rock god of the Kaaba, even though this is not a theological belief of Muslims, or the pagans for that matter. But also they say that, they worship Muhammad, and this was sort of the early view of many of the Orientalists and medieval Christian scholars who thought that Muhammad was the god of Islam, and that, of course, is not correct. Very other things as well. I mean, misconceptions about who Buddha was and who Buddha is and things like this. And you can have your opinions on these things, but you should look at what Christians actually believe in. Christians believe in one God. And as James White rightly puts it, he is one being expressed in three persons. Now, I'm not saying that makes sense. I'm not saying that I'm defending it. But you have to understand this, that Christians do believe in a monotheistic religion. They might have a different form of monotheism, but they are monotheists. They are not pagans, they are not polytheists, they're not pantheists. And so I just want to clear that up. Another verse that I'm seeing taken out of context a lot to defend the integrity of the Gospels is Luke chapter 17, where Jesus is giving the parable of the man who wants to rule, and his enemies do not want him to rule. And there's a quotation where he says, "Those of my enemies who do not want me to rule over them, bring them hither and slay them before me." Now, this is not a direct quote of Jesus, even though many people say that this is a direct quote of Jesus. It's not. He's quoting a king in his story. Now, ironically enough, the context is that he gives the story right before he enters Jerusalem as the King Messiah, with his followers proclaiming him to be the king. So it's kind of interesting that Jesus actually quotes this story right before he makes his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. But I also want to clear up that I see this abused a lot. I see this verse abused a lot by non-Christians, and I think that it's getting old that people start bringing up chapter 17 of Luke. Now, having said that, are there Christians throughout history that have actually used this verse to kill people and things like this? Yes. In the book that I have here called The Dark Side of Christian History, there are many people, including the Crusaders, that use this verse to kill and butcher innocent people in the name of Christ. But it's important to note that this was not Christ, a direct quotation of Christ. This is Christ quoting somebody else. So while there are radical Christians that might use this verse and interpret it to actually give credence to kill innocent people, of course, as Christians and as non-Christians, we all know that this is by no means the teaching of Christ, at least within the Gospels. By the time you get to Revelations, you have Christ basically leading an Armageddon-type style of battle against all of his enemies, making his enemies his footstool. Of course, this would contradict his peace of love and peace and universal brotherhood that we find in the Gospels. So anyway, again, this is just sort of a video to clarify some of these things. I mean, again, we're all going to have our differences of opinions on these theological concepts, but if you're going to be talking to a Christian about his religion, or her religion for that matter, and you start off by saying, oh, well, you're a pagan, you believe in multiple deities, you're not really going to, the conversation's not going to go well after that, because the Christian is going to say, okay, you obviously don't know anything about my religion, so why would I have anything to do with you? And I really think if we're going to have a comparative religious dialogue, or we're going to have an interfaith dialogue between Christians and non-Christians, the non-Christians really need to step up to the plate and better understand Christianity, or else the Christians really are not going to be entertained or want to actually talk with you at all about any sort of theological concepts, and I think that's very, very unfortunate. And, for the Christians out there who are in my audience, please keep presenting your religion and your theology to non-Christians. I think that you're, especially people like James White, when they represent their religion, I emphasize their religion, not anybody else's, but their religion, I think that they are doing a great job, and we need to have this sort of clarification so interfaith dialogue can continue. Thank you everyone for watching. Peace be with you all.